As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner opens with Darl and Jewel returning from some trip Darl had to make. They reach the main house where Addie lays in her bed dying. Ance and Dewey Dell are with her. Cash is outside her window building her coffin and Vardaman is fishing. They briefly converse before Darl and Jewel leave to run errands for Toll, their neighbor. While Darl and Jewel are gone, Peabody, the local doctor, arrives. Shortly after, Addie dies in Dewey Dell's arms. Addie is placed upside down in her coffin so that her poofy dress will fit. That night there's a huge rainstorm. Vardaman runs away to the Tolls only to be brought back by them. When he returns, he drills holes into the top of the coffin so Addie will be able to see. However, he drills holes into her eyes as well. The following day, the family holds her funeral service and covers her face with a veil so no one can see the holes in her eyes. Addie has requested that when she dies, she wants to be buried in the town of Jefferson, so Jewel, Darl, and Cash load her body into a wagon. They then begin their journey to Jefferson. They travel until they reach the Sampson farm. The farm is right next to a river, but they cannot cross the river because the bridge flooded from the storm. Sampson invites the family to spend the night in his house, but the Bundrens refuse and spend the night in the barn instead. The following morning, they turn around to find another way to cross the river. On their way, the family runs into Toll, who agrees to help them cross the river, but he will not give them his mule. They decide that Jewel, Cash, and Darl will cross the river with the wagon at a shallow part. The others will cross farther up, where the bridge used to be. Eventually, everyone makes it across. However, Ance's mules that were pulling the wagon drowned in the river, and Cash breaks his leg. The Bundrens continue on their journey until they reach the Armstead farm. They spend the night in a shed, even though they were given the opportunity to sleep in the house. In the morning, Ance trades away Cash's tools, Jewel's horse, and a little of his own money to buy a new team of mules. The Bundrens continue to travel until reaching the town of Matson. While in the town, Dewey Dell attempts to get an abortion, but the doctor refuses on the basis of his morals. Addie's corpse begins to stink so bad that the sheriff kicks the Bundrens out of town. It has been 8 days since Addie died. Once the Bundrens are a little ways away from Matson, they stop to treat Cash's broken leg because he is slowly bleeding to death. None of them have any medical knowledge, so they pour cement all over his leg because they think it will help. After the cement sets, they re-embark on their journey to reach the Gillespie farm. This time, everyone decides to sleep in the house and only put Addie's body in the barn. Sometime over the night, Darl sets the barn on fire. He has seen the suffering the strip is causing his family and wishes for it to end. The only way he knows for this is to burn the body because that eliminates their reason to go to Jefferson. Vardaman sees Darl do it and tells Dewey Dell, who instructs him to be quiet about it. Unfortunately for Darl, things do not go as planned. Jewel runs into the burning barn to save the coffin. No one other than Vardaman and Dewey Dell know that Darl started the fire. Once the fire is put out, everyone's attention turns towards the injured. Cash's leg has turned black under and around the cement. Jewel has extreme burns on his back that Dewey Dell treats by covering them in ashes from the fire. They leave shortly after. The wagon finally draws closer to Jefferson. Before reaching the town, Dewey Dell changes into her best clothes because she hopes people will be more willing to help her get an abortion if she looks better. When they reach the town, pedestrians comment on the disgusting smell of Addie's rotting corpse. Jewel snaps and confronts one of the men about what he said. The man then pulls out a knife. Darl intervenes. He settles the fight and saves Jewel's life. Further into town, Darl suggests treating Cash's leg before burying Addie, but he is ignored. Instead, Ance enters a house with loud music playing. He remains there for a suspicious amount of time before emerging with 2 shovels. Quickly, Addie gets buried. After Addie is buried, a couple of men from a mental institution come to take Darl away. He attempts to flee, but Dewey Dell attacks him and holds him down while the men tie him up. Turns out that she called the mental institution and told them that Darl started the fire because then he would get locked away. If he is locked away, he can no longer tell anyone her secret, even if he had no intention of doing so in the first place. Once Darl has been completely restrained, he begins to laugh uncontrollably. The next few events happen simultaneously. First off, Darl is taken away to a mental institution in Jackson where he begins to speak in the third person and continues to laugh uncontrollably. He has gone insane and is not mentioned again. Dewey Dell attempts to get an abortion at a corner store but gets tricked instead. The exact actions she takes in the exchange for the treatment are ambiguous but imply a sexual nature. Lastly, Peabody treats Cash's leg. The damage caused by the cement is too severe and part of his leg gets amputated. After the incident at the corner store, Ance takes the $10 given to Addie by Loft to pay for her abortion. She protests, but Ance ignores her. He uses the money to buy himself a new set of false teeth. The following morning, Ance meets up with his children at the edge of town with a strange woman. He introduces her as Mrs. Bundren, and the novel ends.